Well, hello and welcome to episode number 330 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's show, everyone's favourite low-cost airline is threatened with an Italian flight ban. A captain dismissed a go-around call before a hard landing incident, and a new service between Teeside and Heathrow opens up. In the military segment this week, the SpaceX capsule returns safely to Earth. And here, castaways are found by an Air Force tanker aircrew in the Pacific Ocean. We announced the winner of our Plane Reclaimers £150 gift voucher. And Captain Al talks to Matt about airplane mode in the latest Plane Truth episode. So joining me this week, as always, over in the PTUK studios, pressing all the right buttons with a lovely air conditioning system in a nice, cool studio.
Oh, how I wish that was
Smith.
true. Oh, how I wish that was true. My goodness me. I know we shouldn't complain really because other than like when lockdown first started where it was really nice, the weather's not been great for a long time, has it? My goodness me, it's making up for it today, isn't it? Whew, yes. What have you been up to today? I presume you've been in your non-air conditioned truck all day.
Yes, I've been in my 2019 plate Iveco truck to drive around the mean streets of East Anglia. And yes, Matt, it has no air conditioning, but I do have a fridge in there now,
oh, well,
which means I do have chilled beverages whilst I'm driving along. So that's
right.
good.
Well, I mean that's sensible. Yeah,
I know. So you have noticed we have no Nev with us this week. Nev is unfortunately on a special mission to sample the latest and greatest red wines of Europe.
Right.
So Nev won't be able to be with us this week, and also Armando can't be with us this week because Armando is busy carrying passengers around the US for his airline. So that's good because at least that means Armando is working, and that's always a good thing with the aviation industry as it is now. But joining us this week, we have it's a legendary guest really, and we love having him on the show, and he's back to taunt us with joyous revelry.
You're right, of course, have you had a lot to drink or something?
I know. It is, of course, he doesn't need an introduction, really. It's the man himself. It's Captain Nick.
Hi, guys. Joyous revelry. I don't know if I can live up to that, but I'll do my best. Sorry for not being able to make it last week. I gather you did find a last-minute replacement, but that E-Day had been a bit of a disaster for me. So by the time I got around only a few minutes before the show started, I was feeling decidedly off colour. So better to put it off for this week. But thanks very much for not banning me completely.
Absolutely. You're always welcome, my friend. Always welcome.
Definitely. It's good to have you back on, Nick. It's good to have you back
thank you.
on. How are things across your side of the UK? Nick, I'm guessing you're enjoying the summer sun.
27 degrees. Well, I certainly am enjoying it with the car and the roof down. Although at times I'm kind of not feeling very green because I've got the roof down and the aircon on full blast.
Don't tell anyone; they'll never know. It's fine.
No, exactly right. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Actually, Nick, I was going to say, Nick, we were saying earlier you're going to treat yourself to a new present soon for all your amazing photography work, aren't you?
Well, that's right. All the meager profits I make from my photography business go into a little bucket, and when it becomes sufficiently large, I can splash out and treat myself to something new, which is brilliant. Except that this something new is bigger than my bucket, so I'm having to sneak in birthday presents and Christmas presents. But I'm looking at acquiring the new Canon mirrorless R5 camera, so I'm hoping to give it a tryout with Adam when we go up to Duxford for the air display in September. I should have it by then. Oh, wow. So apparently I can strap my big Canon glass on it, my EF lenses, so hoping to get some good results at 20 frames a second.
I bet.
I should pretty soon fill up a few cards, like 45 megapixels, are big file sizes. So,
presumably that is. Sorry, we're talking about photography. I do apologise, everyone.
Oh,
aviation photography.
Yeah. Oh, okay, well, that's all right. We can get away with that, then. That's fine. But I mean, one of the things that's really interesting from my point of view, obviously, is because I mean, presumably, genuinely, the file sizes now with so much data in them. I mean, the picture files themselves must be huge.
They are huge, and I've never had a camera. Well, I won't have had a camera with this capacity before. So the trouble is that you end up going, okay, I've got this fantastic new camera, and now I'm going to need a couple of new lenses, and then you start trying to process the pictures on your big iMac, which I've got here, 27-inch, which is quite old now. It's 2013, and I'm going to probably go, oh, this isn't coping very well. So if I replaced it, it would be 2,000 or 3,000, and then you're going to need a bigger storage. So not only cards to go in your new camera, which are probably about 125 quid for a decent sized card, new battery types, so they're over £100 each. It all starts to mount up.
Yeah.
Then, of course, you're going to need more storage. So I'll need some like 10 terabyte drives to put all this stuff.
All on. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So, the camera is just the start of a very slippery slope.
Actually, you mentioned Duxford there. Interestingly enough, Aaron's ATPL journey saying he's flying into Duxford for the first time tomorrow. That's quite cool.
Really?
Aaron, we want to hear a lot more about that. Please do get in touch.
Pictures. Send us pictures.
Yeah, send us pictures and tell us all about it. We'd love to hear about that. That's
send us
exciting.
pictures of the crash. We'd love to see.
Oh, stop it. Honestly.
Sorry.
And moving swiftly
Am I
on.
not allowed to say that?
There's no such thing as a crash. It's fine.
So thanks. We're gonna say a big thanks to everyone who's joined us in the live YouTube chat room this evening. Big mention to everyone in there. We're going to run through some names quickly before we go and move on. Alan White, hello to you, Alan. Pilot Pip's in there. Stephen Ivy.
Pilot Pip.
We've got Tanya W. Masha's in there. We've got Stephen H. Rakon is in there. Richard Adams. And let me just scroll down. Armando is obviously in there, keeping an eye on things.
Of course.
We've got Tony S. Lane Street, our main man, Micah, also is in there as well. Aaron's ATPL, as Matt said, is also in the chat room. Scrolling down, make sure I haven't...
He's flying down from Teeside, by the way, which is quite exciting.
That's quite exciting.
Yeah, it's a nice
Should be
journey.
good weather tomorrow, actually.
Yeah.
Welcome to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. It is the 7th of August, and time just coming past 8 minutes past 7. So for anyone who listens to the audio version who wants to join in, don't forget to go over to YouTube and find us on there. Just search Plain Talking UK on YouTube. You'll find the live shows on there if you want to watch playback versions. And also don't forget as well to hit subscribe and hit the bell icon, which is right next to it, which you'll be notified then when we go live with our new episodes, because we'd love to have you in the live chat room when we're doing the live shows, as everyone is at the moment. So good.
Absolutely.
Nice to see everyone.
Indeed.
So I suppose we better push on with the show. We've got loads of news to get through this week, and as we said earlier, don't forget that competition's being drawn later on. Ooh, exciting. So we're going to start the show then.
Are you all right, Carlos? Seriously?
Yeah, I'm fine. We're going to start the show then, as we do. It's hot in here, I tell you, it's so hot. Just going to do that for the benefit of everyone who's watching. There we go.
Oh, that's quite warm for the UK. Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
There we go, yeah.
Anyway, let's do some aviation.
So as we do each week with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if everyone is ready...
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
I'm not.
So kicking off this week's first news, it's breaking news. Gonna have to sort of insert a kind of
All right, I've got enough to do. No.
I know, fine, fair enough. Don't do that one. So this one is on the bbc.co.uk, and this one was just over 35 minutes ago. And Kerala plane crash, 16 dead after Air India plane breaks in two at Calicut. I think it's Calicut. pronounce that. An Air India Express aircraft with 191 people on board has crashed at an airport in the southern state of Kerala, killing at least 16 people, officials say. The aircraft en route from Dubai skidded off the runway and broke into at Calcutta Airport upon landing, India's aviation authorities said. Rescue efforts are underway currently with emergency services at the scene, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he was pained by the accident. Mccarran, a lawmaker from Calicut, told the BBC at least 16 people have died in the crash. Most people on board the Boeing 737 jet have been evacuated, with at least 35 of them taken to hospital with injuries, the authorities have said. The airline said that there were 184 passengers, including 10 children and 7 crew members, of which 2 were pilots on board flight IX-1344 when it crashed at Calicut, also known as Kizkodi? I don't know. Matt, that's why you're giving that story.
You're on your own, mate. Sorry.
The flight was being operated by the government to repatriate Indians stuck overseas during the coronavirus outbreak. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation, or DGCA, said the plane fell into a valley and broke in two, skidding off the end of the runway. No fire was reported at the time of landing, the aviation regulator said. Images carried by Indian media show the aircraft broken in 2 pieces with people searching through the wreckage. Distressed to learn about the tragic accident of the Air India Express aircraft in Kasuri, Kerala, have instructed the NDRF, or National Disaster Response Force, to reach the site at the earliest and assist with rescue operations. The incident happened at around 1900 local time, or 1430 BST, amid heavy rainfall in the region. There has been also flooding and landslides as India's monsoon season reaches its peak. Earlier on Friday, dozens of people were feared dead in the Kerala's Durg district after monsoon season's floods triggered a landslide. So it's safe to say, obviously, that there was definitely bad weather. You can see the pictures on here. It's obviously raining at the time when this happened. So one of the pictures there shows the rear of the aircraft. I think that's from probably around about where the wing section is back to the tail is kind of in one piece with the front end of the aircraft. I think is the part that took the most damage. I think one of the reports I heard on the news before we went live was that I think it said the captain had been killed and the first officer was injured. But I think this is a kind of evolving story, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure.
It is. But this is typical of accidents that we're hearing about more and more often. Runway excursions, and particularly on landing, and particularly associated with bad weather, wet weather. And despite a couple of decades of work by national authorities around the world, this tendency for people to persist in trying to land when the approach isn't perfect or they haven't really taken into account the conditions led to the introduction of stabilized approach criteria, which are so common now that I can't understand that there would be an airline without that, or an authority. Not just that, but rigid adherence to landing distance calculations and training that involves bulk landings, bounce landings, things that go wrong in the final part of approach. The industry has been trying to tackle it really hard, but it persists in being one of the nastiest and most common accidents that we're getting. It's very sad. Despite the industry's best efforts, we don't seem to be stamping this problem out.
Actually, an update on the Aviation Herald website. I'm just checking up on that. It does say that it's been updated that someone's reported that both pilots have actually been killed in the accident. It does say on here as well, Nick, that according to ADSB data, the aircraft had attempted one approach to runway 28 about 20 minutes prior to the landing, but had gone around from about 2,700 feet. So
well, that's good. That's good, because perhaps the crew were being go-around minded when conditions weren't perfect, but eventually you get to a point where you're starting to have fuel consumption issues. You may not have quite the reserves that you need to hang around until the weather improves. For some reason, they may have been reluctant to divert. And in the monsoon, we know that conditions can be pretty awful, not just at the airfield you're at, but in large swathes of the country. So that might have been a problem. They might have needed to land at that airport and had no alternative. They shouldn't really have got themselves into that situation, I would hope, but it's a possibility. And when you're under that kind of pressure, it can lead to mistakes. I'm not suggesting the crew made a mistake. It may have been something else that happened. But, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? As you say, it's an evolving story, and I'm sure more information will come out. Before we move on to the next story here, now I do this slightly nervously, Nick, but I've had a text message from Pip, which is always nerve-wracking. I know, that was my reaction. So I'm going to say, can you...
Is it broadcastable?
Probably not. So the question that Pip is asking is, can you ask Nick how he came to be at NASA in 1977 with the Star Trek crew? Clearly it's him standing next to Zulu. I mean, it's a bit rude, isn't it, honestly?
Which one's me?
The one in the brown suit, I think.
No. I don't think that's me. I used to have an aubergine-coloured suit.
Right.
But it had big flares.
Okay. Well, there we are.
It doesn't look like my suit.
You could blame Pip
mistaken
for that
identity, but thanks for that, Pip.
Yes, always
Appreciate
a pleasure,
that.
never a chore. Yes, absolutely. Anyway, sorry, carry on, Carlos.
This is the next story. Story number 1. The last one was story 0 because we like to bung in an extra story.
Yeah, well, it was breaking as we came live.
Breaking news,
yeah.
So this next story, actually, it was sent in last night by listener Aaron. And this one is over on the pointsky.co.uk website. And regional UK airline secures Heathrow slots for the first time. So another small carrier has gained access to some of the notoriously hard-to-get slots at London Heathrow's airport. Eastern Airways is set to launch a brand new route from Teeside Airport in the northeast to London Heathrow. The route, which will be operated by a 76-seater Embraer 170, has its inaugural flight scheduled for the 14th of September. We'll see if that happens. The flight is currently scheduled to arrive into and depart from Heathrow Terminal 2. However, this could change when Heathrow reopens Terminals 3 and 4, which were closed due to the pandemic. For the week commencing the 14th of September, the airline will operate 4 flights per week, building this up gradually until the week commencing the 5th of October, when there will be a once daily flight. The schedule is on the website here if you want to take yourselves over. The notes, which will be on the show notes for this. So the route will mean close competition for BA, which operates the only other route from the northeast of England, Newcastle to Heathrow for travellers in County Durham and Teeside. Teeside Airport is likely to be a quicker and easier airport to get to than Newcastle. So Eastern Airways, just for those of you who might want to fly on it, they offers economy passengers of 15 kilograms of checked luggage, whereas checked luggage is not included for passengers who opt for BA's lowest fares. Sorry, Nev. Eastern also offers in-flight drinks and snacks, including alcohol on flights after 11 a.m. And as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, British Airways recently brought back free snacks and water services to its Eurotraveller cabins, as Nev probably found out, but is likely to revert back to its buy on board Marks and Spencer stuff at a later date.
Actually,
so the new route,
sorry to interrupt, but Tony's actually saying rather interestingly that the Tees Valley Mayor was elected on the promise of rescuing Teeside Airport, and he's doing a good job so far. So that's a nice thing to hear, isn't it? Yeah, he sort of delivered on his promise anyway.
And it's also good. It's nice to hear of nice or good stories at the moment for airlines.
Agreed. Absolutely.
And for passengers as well. So that's good.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think there'll be a lot of complaint from the big carriers, because after all, we need the feeders to bring passengers into places like Heathrow so they can get on board their international flights. And, the big carriers will be very happy when that happens. So I think it's great. The only problem I have with it is mixing these little puddle jumpers in with all the big boys. And we have a big problem on the approach of getting all the aircraft in that we want. And I'm sure Adam will be sort of going, oh, no, not another puddle jumper. There's a bug smasher on the approach. Oh, no.
I remember from our chats, actually, with him, because Flybe obviously were one. Was it Flybe that were one of the few that still had... they had one going in, didn't
Dash
they?
8s or
the
something.
Dash 8 going into Heathrow, and it was obviously spacing and things like that was a big issue to get the gaps big enough for everyone to sort of
That's exactly right. But usually the crews are very
of course,
cooperative, and they sort of slam the throttles to full power, and they're sort of coming down the slope. Balls to the wall,
right.
And
confidently,
or something similar.
Confidently, they're coming. Yes, absolutely. Right. Shall we move on? Before
slowing down at the last moment.
Well, at least they'll be
up their chuff.
At least they'll be able to get off the runway quick at the first available exit.
True.
It's nice. Smoking brakes and coming off on two wheels.
Yeah,
quite.
So
indeed.
The next story, moving on for Matt, and Italy are putting their banning fists together.
Right. Okay. Are you all right, Carlos? Seriously?
I'm fine. Yeah. I have no beer.
No,
I'm empty.
Right. Oh, clearly, that's what's wrong. Yes, absolutely. Anyway, so that was an unusual transition. Thanks for that. Euronews is the site, Euronews.com, and the headline is Italy threatens Ryanair with flight ban over COVID-19 safety rules. So Italy's Civil Aviation Authority, ENAC, has threatened to suspend Ryanair's permit to fly into the country, citing non-compliance with COVID-19 safety rules. ENAC said in a statement that Ryanair systematically does not comply with national regulations to reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission when flying to and from Italian airports. Not only is the obligation of distancing between passengers not observed, but also the conditions that allow derogation. Not sure what that word means. What does derogation mean?
Deregulation, is it?
Is it derogation?
Oh, right. Rogue nation.
Yeah,
absolutely. Get rid of the rogue nation.
I'll just break in there that derogation is an exemption, form, or relaxation of a rule or law.
Oh, there we are. Well, see, every day's a school day, isn't it? And it's
Marvellous.
derogation.
Of all the people I thought would know that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've learned something today. Anyway.
Well done, Carlos.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only is this obligation not of distancing between passengers not observed, but also the conditions that allow derogation from this distancing are not met, it added. It warned that if the Irish airline persists in flouting the rules, it could require Ryanair to not only fly planes at half capacity, or worse, it could suspend all air transport activities at national airports, requiring the carrier to reroute all passengers already in possession of tickets. Ryanair rejected ENAC's accusations as factually incorrect in a statement to Euronews. Ryanair complies fully with the measures set out by the Italian government, and our customers can rest assured that we are doing everything to reduce the interaction on both our aircraft and at airports to protect the health of our passengers when flying with Ryanair, it added. It argued that it encourages all passengers to check in online, and that specific boarding procedures have been put in place to avoid unnecessary gathering of passengers both at boarding gates and on the aircraft. To fly planes at full capacity to and from Italy, airlines must ensure that social distancing is respected before and after takeoff. During boarding and transfer on shuttle buses, staff and passengers must also wear masks throughout the flight and change them every 4 hours. Ryanair operates out of more than 25 Italian destinations, and Italy was the first of the European countries to be hit hard by the global pandemic and to impose lockdown measures to curb the spread of the deadly virus. More than 35,100 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 in the country, and over 248,000 people have been infected by the disease, according to a tally from Johns Hopkins University. I'll tell you what. Actually, if Jenny is in the chat room, is Jenny in today? Because I'd be very interested to hear her thoughts on it. Actually, so it's yes. I see I'm getting some stick in the chat room, but it's no less than I deserve. It's the English language talking podcast Airliners Live has suggested. So thanks for that. But well, as I say, I learnt a new word today. Yes, actually, yeah. Let me see if I can pop that up on screen. So Jenny's just sent a message. Oh, I do love it when the technology.
Yeah, Jenny says that apparently there is a bit of a bun fight to get stuff out of the overhead bins and get off the flights. Yeah, I think we've all seen that. I think with flights.
Yeah, it does make you wonder maybe if somebody has been on said flight. Whether perhaps they've witnessed something like. I mean, there must be a reason why the authorities have sort of been either made aware of it or something like that. So again, this is potentially another developing story.
So moving on to the next story, Captain Nick, you've got this next one.
Yes, this is from Farnborough International News Network, and it's about Virgin Atlantic's Chapter 15 proceedings. And they tell us that Virgin Atlantic has filed for bankruptcy protection in New York amid fears it will run out of cash in September if a planned rescue deal were to fail. So it's just a preemptive measure that they're putting in place, but we're all hoping that their reorganization will occur. The 49% of the airline is owned by US carrier Delta, with the remainder owned by a group which is Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Group. Virgin Atlantic filed under Chapter 15 of the US Bankruptcy Code. So what this does is to make it easier for the protection of investments and the preservation of employment protection for US assets against creditors. So the US portion of the company will be protected. If you were an American airline, you would be filing under a different code. Bankruptcy protection filing is in addition to court proceedings filed in a UK court this week where Virgin Atlantic obtained approval to convene meetings of affected creditors to vote on the restructuring plan on August the 25th. They're not long to go before that happens. A VA spokesman said that the company was pursuing a solvent restructuring under British law. In May, the company announced it was set to cut more than 3,000 jobs and ending operations in Gatwick and consolidating its operations in Heathrow. And the airline seeking approval of a 5-year, £1.2 billion restructuring deal, including fresh funding from investors and the wider Virgin Group and renegotiations on aircraft leases. So I know for a fact that there are a number of investors that have already committed large sums of money, including Richard Branson himself, to keep the company solvent. The court filing said the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has had an adverse impact not only on the airline but the aviation industry as a whole. I think we could take that for granted, occasioning the near shutdown of the global passenger aviation industry. Now, Virgin, unlike some airlines, only has a relatively small cargo branch, and the aircraft are all passenger primarily orientated aircraft. We don't have a freight division. So, carrying cargo is a subcategory of the airline's main job, carrying passengers. And they're saying that a more comprehensive recapitalization is necessary to secure the future of its business and ensure that it's able to meet its liabilities. So they're just being a responsible company, really. They're setting in line protections so that if they do have a problem with restructuring, and I don't think anyone's really anticipating that, that they will be in a position to deal with it.
Is this genuinely something to be concerned about, though, Nick? I mean,
Well, I don't have access to the books, so I can't really say. But what I will say is that the tabloids latched onto the word bankruptcy, right. And for a couple of days it was really a press field day over a misinterpretation of what seeking Chapter 15 in the United States means for an airline.
Yeah.
And, an airline relies a lot on a sense of security. No one wants to be left overseas when an airline, say like Monarch did, goes bust, and then there has to be a huge and very expensive repatriation. Yeah. When people hear that an airline might be in financial difficulties, they get nervous and they're perhaps unlikely or less likely to book on that airline, which, as Captain Al on his interview with me a while back said, it therefore forces a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes. If an airline appears to be in trouble, people not booking on it makes that
in trouble,
problem a reality. Yes. Yeah. So I thought it was very irresponsible of the press to misrepresent this action.
This has been the problem with the media in general, hasn't it? I mean, the inaccuracies when it comes to reporting on aviation stories, and the thing is there are people, not Alex, who do know what they're talking about when it comes to, there are pundits and experts out there. I mean, I miss terribly. So we had Richard Westcott, who was the transport correspondent for the BBC, who now actually works in our region. But he used to go to great lengths. We had a great interview with him, and he got as frustrated as everyone else when things like this happen, because it doesn't take a lot to look up a picture of said aircraft and make sure it's attached to the correct story and things like that. And as you say, and you'd have thought, as you say, like they've literally latched onto the word bankruptcy and that, but not done their research into what that actually means, and that in the States, because the rules are very different there than it is here.
Almost certainly. Yeah. You look at the airlines, the big and successful airlines that went all the way into Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the United States, and involves huge airlines like Delta. It is just a protection. Those airlines came back out of Chapter 11 and continued to be very successful airlines after they were given a pause to renegotiate their finances and deal with their creditors. And that's what these protections in the US do. Sadly, it only really affects the US portion of the airline. Yeah. In the UK, as we saw with Monarch, if we'd had an equivalent, Monarch might well be still with us, as they had found themselves perhaps another buyer and renegotiated finance, etc., etc. But we don't. So in the UK, we still see these airlines going under very dramatically, which I think is a mistake. I think currently the financial rules in the United States are superior when it comes to protection of big companies.
These sort of things. As you say, because it buys time to restructure, literally.
Yeah, exactly right.
Indeed.
So moving on to the next story, and this we're going to hand things over to Armando. I know he's not here, but he has very kindly sent us in an update. So
a very cool location.
A very cool,
yeah, absolutely. Here we go.
Hey guys, I just wanted to give you a quick business aviation update. So business aviation is poised to have some of the best of its times post-COVID-19 as the sector welcomes unprecedented numbers of new customers seeking the safety and convenience of private air travel. That's according to Kenny Ditcher, founder and CEO of Wheels Up. Ditcher spoke on July 29th during a webinar hosted by Aviation Week. In this conversation with Fred George, Aviation Week's chief aircraft evaluation editor, Ditcher described how the pandemic has brought changes to the sectors that both owners and operators will welcome. According to him, he says, "We saw the whole addressable market shift before our eyes. If there were 100,000 people and businesses that are in the private aviation addressable market pre-COVID, in the last 120 to 150 days, that has swelled. He thinks that the whole industry is going to benefit from this. There's 200,000 to 300,000 people that are now looking at private aviation, not just as a luxury, but as a necessity." So Wheels Up has seen these changes firsthand. The company is adding new customers at double plus per month rates seen before the crisis and is now running at pre-COVID levels, according to Ditcher. He said, "It's a different kind of demand. It's not the business flying that we are used to seeing because businesses are still mandating that people work from home. Separately, vacation travel as we know it is not happening. So what we're seeing are families relocating, moving around. The good news, according to him, is that when business and leisure as we know it comes back in, you're going to see a heyday in that private aviation space. So turning private aviation into a mass market is not just wheels up and ditchers rallying cry. According to him, he says it should be as easy to order a safety vetted, verified airplane on your iPhone as it is an Uber or a Domino's pizza. That's what he told Aviation Week. It has been his goal from the very beginning. Wheels Up has always been focused on the King Air platform because he saw it as the flying sport utility vehicle. It is a very versatile aircraft capable of carrying out large numbers of short-haul flights at a low cost. Through acquisitions, Wheels Up bought a TMC company in 2019, was an existing Part 135 aviation partner, Gamma Aviation, in March of this year, and the company has expanded not just in its size, but it's in capability. So according to him, the King Air was a category unto itself. The next natural class for us is to be in the small mid, which is kind of the Cessna Citation XLS, and the Citation X was a perfect super mid for Wheels Up. With the TMC acquisition, they picked up 26 Beechcraft 400 XPs that gave us King Air, light, mid, and super mid capabilities. And speaking of the Beechcraft King Air, the venerable and venerated King Air turboprop is getting a mild but noticeable makeover with the new King Air 360 and 360 ER versions that were announced this week. So key features include new auto throttles, digital pressurization management, in addition to a heavily revised interior. Updates to the pressurization include a higher differential pressure limit to provide a 10% decrease in cabin altitude at most common cruise altitudes. That's basically a more comfortable ride for the passengers. So while some King Air watchers wondered if Textron Aviation would go to a full FADEC, which is full authority digital engine control, plus the 1,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney PT6, the company insisted that it has adapted the innovative solutions and support Thrust Sense Auto Throttle. According to Textron, the auto throttle supports pilots in their critical mission of delivering people or cargo safely by automatically managing engine power from the takeoff roll through the climb, cruise, descent, go-around, and landing phases of flight. So this enhancement reduces pilot workload. It supports them in their continuous vigilance to prevent overspeed or underspeed, overtemp, overtorque conditions. With Textron Aviation also updated the King Air 350 their manual pressurization control to a new digital controller that automatically schedules cabin pressure during both climb and descent, reducing the pilot workload and increasing overall passenger comfort. So the pressurization gauges seems like a small change, but it's been integrated with the powerful Collins Aerospace Proline Fusion flight deck. That's according to Textron. King Air has seating up to 9 passengers. And the King Air 360's new interior is said to have nicer materials, better attention to detail, and upgrades like a multitude of USB charging ports, LED lighting. According to the company, they created an environment that provides passengers with a greater sense of openness inside the King Air. That's according to Chris Tannehill. That's their Senior Vice President of Customer Experience. He says the cabin experience is such a crucial element when choosing an aircraft, and it was important for us to surpass customer expectations. Their journey will not only be comfortable, but also a relaxing, enjoyable experience. Beechcraft King Air 360 offers many of the amenities that our customers desire. So this King Air cruised at about 312 knots for a maximum range of 1,800 nautical miles for the 360. And almost 2,700 nautical miles for the 360 extended range with 775 gallons of fuel. So Textron expects to deliver the first 360 in the fall. Of course, prices have not yet been announced. And lastly, in business aviation, we need somewhere for these business aircraft to go, and those are called FBOs, or fixed base operators. One of the biggest FBOs in the world is Signature Flight Support. They've just announced that it's expanding its European network with the acquisition of 2 TAG Aviation FBOs in Switzerland. This marks the global service provider's first entry into the Swiss market. The deal includes a former TAG FBO at Geneva International Airport, a long coveted market for Signature, and this move signals the end of TAG's more than half a century as the FBO operator in Geneva. It leaves it with just a lone FBO in Macau, according to the sale, or following the sale of the Farnborough Airport in September. Located in the airport's general aviation terminal, the facility includes 3 private passenger lounges, 2 rest areas, and an 8-seat conference room. So according to Signature, Europe continues to be an area of strategic opportunity for their global business. TAG Aviation's tenured presence in Geneva presented an excellent means to enter the second busiest general aviation market in Europe, and its operations in Sion are a source of valuable seasonal traffic. They look forward to building an extensive reputation for service excellence that TAG Aviation had cultivated.
I mean, kudos on the background there, Armando. I mean, come on, that's just not playing ball, is it? Honestly,
That's very nice. Of the
he had
airport to let
that
him-
memorised to a T, didn't
I
he?
know, absolutely.
He forgot to mention, though, that those Kingos can kill a lot of bugs.
What have you popped up behind you there, Nick? What are you?
Well, am I supposed to be replacing Armando? So
Social distancing. Look, he's
I was
right
gonna
on your
say,
shoulder.
Absolutely. There's
yeah, I know. And he got a big head too.
But anyway,
Great piece, though. I'm
is,
amazed.
yeah.
They're very
I
smooth.
think I can just about afford the Connect membership here. So the one-time initiation fee of £2,995.
yeah,
I think the core membership and the business membership,
yeah.
it's a lot of money.
This is.
Yeah.
It's I mean, Lane Street saying Signature is vying to be the only FBO in the game at the moment, which is an interesting point, really.
This whole wheels up thing is quite good.
Oh, I'd like to point out, by the way, that I did a little piece which included the story of Olive Ann Beach, the First Lady of Aviation, who ran the beach company for many, many years after her husband, the boss, fell ill. And she's a remarkable lady and great story of a lady, the very first aircraft manufacturing executive to run a company.
Well, we'll leave that with producer John, who will no doubt find out which episode that was actually on.
Oh, the last one.
Oh, it's the latest one. Yeah, absolutely. Richard Adams is desperately concerned, by the way, Nick. He's very concerned that essentially you're sitting on Armando's knee and that social distancing has gone out of the window.
I'm nothing but a puppet.
Right.
Don't ask where his hand is.
Okay, and there we are. That's where we need to move on. Carlos, please dig us out of this hole.
And we move on to a story about an aircraft that doesn't look anything at all like an Airbus. So this is on the flightglobal.com website, and the headline on here is all about the MC-21 undergoing water ingestion test runs. Guessing it was a bit thirsty. So Aircrew has completed a series of water ingestion tests of the MC-21-300 twinjet at speeds of up to 150 knots. The airframer says the testing has confirmed the aircraft is capable of operating on water-contaminated runways. Aircrew performed 29 runs as well as 3 taxiing tests at Ulyanovsk over the week of the 16th to the 22nd of July, with different flap settings and engine thrust levels, including reverse thrust. The aircraft, fitted with Pratt & Whitney PW1400G engines, travelled through a pool of water 70 metres in length and 20 metres wide. Aircrew says the test demonstrated the MC-21 was capable and able to carry out safe movement on a wet runway at a wide range of speeds without any failure. The aircraft also remained stable and under control, which is always a good thing to have as well. So obviously Matt's showing the video on there of these water ingestion tests. Now, I'll put it to Nick, because obviously Nick is our resident Airbus, albeit retired Airbus captain. So Nick, do you not think this is a little bit 321-ish?
It does look that way, doesn't it? It looks like it's got a kind of a 350 nose, or perhaps a 7.8 nose. But yeah, they're getting very generic, these aircraft, don't you think? But despite that, fascinating period in an aircraft's development when they have to undergo all these tests, high temperature, low temperature, actual tests, flying them to airports all around the world where they can investigate the capabilities of the machine. And this is just one of many. And really what they're looking at is does the water sprayed up with the nose wheel go into the engines? And if it does, is it a sufficient quantity to put the engines out? It's quite possible to flame out an engine because of massive water ingestion. Does the water from the main wheels smash the flaps around and damage them? All that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
So it's a very, very interesting test. And there are plenty of videos of going back, say, to the first one I remember seeing was the 777. And it's very impressive to see a huge airplane like that go through these particular trials. Very good. I like seeing them.
Me and John, Nick, were speaking last night, and we both agreed that this MC-21, I don't know if it's the camera angle or the way the video is taken, but do you think this aircraft has got huge flight deck windows?
It's nice. It all depends upon, the view from where you're sitting. You need to be able to see a bit. But it does. They look almost out of proportion with the aircraft. But then again, if it's not a vast airplane, pilots don't need little windows just because it's a little airplane. They still need to be able to see out.
Well, yeah.
So, windows on a bigger aircraft obviously look smaller.
Yeah. But no, it's good to see this coming online as such, and be interesting to see how good this does in the market, Nick, against such.
I mean, it's not a great time to be sort of trying to put aircraft in, trying to sell aircraft at the moment. I dare say is a very challenging thing in the current climate.
Mm.
No doubt, but I think they're in full production. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought if they're still doing these kind of trials.
Right.
So they may, and they're probably in a position where they can slow things down a bit, which is much better than being a factory like Boeing, who are in the middle of production and effectively, or Airbus come to that, effectively got to stop and perhaps lay off your employees. For them, it might be a little easier.
True.
And Nick, you've got the next story, and it's all about your favourite subject, I think, Nick, going around.
Oh, absolutely. And I've just got to find the Flight Global article, which I opened. You can tell I was ready for this. So it's a Trigana 737, my favourite airplane. Captain dismissed go-around call before a hard landing, which you've got to say, was that the best decision, Captain? Anyway, Indonesian investigators determined that Trigana Air Services Boeing 737-300 Foxtrot captain dismissed go-around suggestions during a visual approach in poor weather before a hard landing that destroyed the aircraft's undercarriage and caused it to veer off the runway. So again, we're talking about a landing incident. The twin jet, Papa Kilo, a Yankee, Sierra Yankee, was conducting a visual approach to Wamena Airport's runway 15 on the 13th of September 2016, so a little while ago. And the authorities state that the airline's visual approach guidance for the runway stipulates that a go-around is required at 2.8 miles and 1,000 feet above the ground if the conditions do not allow a safe landing. So that kind of is part of the stabilized approach criteria that I mentioned earlier. Visibility at the time was around 3 kilometers, so not good, whereas the approach criteria demanded 4.8 kilometers and a cloud ceiling of 1,000 feet. Cockpit discussions show that the pilots were uncertain about whether they could see certain visual reference points. Well, it shouldn't really be uncertain about that. They're pretty well defined as to what you need to be able to see to continue and land. This indicated that the weather was not suitable for approach under visual flight rules, says the inquiry. The aircraft did not abort the approach. That's a dreadful word. They should say the aircraft did not go around at 1,000 feet, but continued to descend to around 400 feet. So he blew through his 1,000-foot decision point, continued down another 600 feet, at which point the descent was temporarily halted for 21 seconds. So he leveled off at only 400 feet above the ground, not really being able to commit himself to a landing because he couldn't see what was going on. Investigators said that the pilots had not seen the runway, but the captain who was flying did not accept the first officer's call for a go-around. Now, that's a bit of a no-no. You've got to treat your crew with the respect they deserve. It's all part of this wonderful system we have on the flight deck called CRM, where we listen to everyone on the flight deck, regardless of their seniority. And certainly in my outfit, in the old days, if someone on the flight deck, it didn't matter whether it was the spare pilot on the jump seat, shouted, "Go around," we went around. Whoever was flying the airplane went around, because you do not want to mess about in that kind of a situation and go through a question and answer session. If somebody saw something that wasn't right, you go around and you talk about it later. You should always have fuel for a go around or two. So there's really no discussion, but this captain decided to continue. The inquiry found out that a preceding aircraft had successfully landed. Yes, that always puts a little bit of pressure on you, but the guy behind you is relying on you to make a good decision. And if you don't decide to go around and have a bit of a problem, the guy behind you might have a worse problem. So you've got to have that in your head. If I don't go around and just get away with it, the guy behind me might pile in. So, let's be sensible out there, this guys. The flight data information showed the captain eventually saw the runway and increased the aircraft's rate of descent. So obviously he leveled off for quite a while. And when he eventually caught sight of the runway environment, he was probably way high for his approach. And he pitched the nose down to about 11 degrees. I'm going, whoa, the normal altitude is 3 degrees. Okay?
Wow.
Well, I don't know about 737. They may be talking about the nose altitude. Okay, so
right.
I don't know. On my aeroplane, we flew slightly nose up, so we were level or slightly positive, and he reduced the nose considerably. So I'm not sure if it's nose position or his glide slope. And he rolled 28 degrees to the right, reaching a descent rate of 3,200 feet a minute. Well, he was only starting at 400 feet, building up that kind of descent rate. There's no way you're going to stop that in time to have a major impact. The GPWS quite correctly shouted at him, sink rate, warning him of what was about to happen. And still descending at 2,300 feet a minute, it touched down at what looks like about the right approach speed, 137 knots, about 125 meters after the threshold. So he was at about the landing point, but to achieve that, he dove the airplane down upon it, a bit like a Stuka, I suspect. The impact reached 3.25 Gs, 3¼ times the force of gravity, causing both main landing gear assemblies to collapse and the left one to break off completely. Well, I'm not entirely surprised. The engines and the fuselage contacted the runway and the aircraft veered to the right, stopping just nearly 2,000 meters from the threshold. So, well, thank heavens the airplane's fairly sturdy. It didn't break up completely. It was badly damaged. None of the three occupants, the two pilots and the loadmaster, was injured. So thank the Lord they didn't have any passengers. There'd be people with some very sore backs. Investigators have attributed the accident to the pilot's confidence that a safe landing could be achieved, disregarding several conditions which required a go-around. That sounds pretty
damning,
lame, if you ask me. I think they could have used slightly stronger language, but they tend not to in these reports. The crew had a high experience gradient. We've talked about this, I'm sure. When you've got a very senior captain, or there is that social gradient that occurs in some countries between authority, it is more likely that the first officer won't speak up and countermand what an experienced captain appears to be doing. And you should try and level that gradient. If you're a good captain, you level that gradient so that everyone on the flight deck feels that they can contribute and try and prevent incidents like this happening. Because no one wants to be a captain with 23,800 hours against the first of 650, and it may be a chance the captain won't fly one more hour. Because he just made such an awful error. So if you're that first of 650 hours, it doesn't matter what your experience level is. If you see something that is definitely wrong, you can see it and feel it in your bones that what's happening is wrong, you have got to speak out, and you've got to speak out firmly.
Very
So
sad
actually,
thing. Yeah.
I was going to say Trigana have been in the news as well recently. Again, a 737-300 performing a freight flight on the 27th of July this year performed an entirely unstabilized approach to Wymena's runway 15, rolling right and then left. The aircraft continued on the approach to a touchdown with the left wing low, causing the wing tip and flaps to contact the runway surface. Indonesian authorities have opened an investigation into this.
Yeah.
And Matt, I think you've got a video
I
of
have.
it.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, now, first thing, Neville, what's wrong with that video?
I mean, vertical, but we'll just close over there.
Exactly right. Neville, have a word with that bloke.
He'll be furious.
Yeah, it all looks reasonable up to this point, doesn't it? I mean, you can hear the guy who's paddling the throttles. Now, somebody's shouting at him, the guy holding the camera, to go around already. He can see what's happening. Apparently the crew can't. It's not very clear, but he was desperately S-turning to get onto the centre line, and he overcooked it. And he had, at the point of touchdown, he had his left wing way low. So he impacted his wing on the ground. It could have been absolutely bloody disastrous. But he got away with some flap and wing damage. But if I was in that airline, I would be looking very, very sharply at my training department, saying we might have a cultural problem in this airline, and we need to sharpen up our training procedures just to completely kill this problem with people recognizing when they have a poor approach and that they need to go around and set it up better next time.
Indeed.
Actually,
I think we should... I was going to say...
I was going to say one of the comments on this is quite good. Actually, Matt, read this comment, because this
it says,
will come great from you.
On the one hand, it's really awesome to have so many events covered by video. We wouldn't be able to analyse incidents, accidents, without people pointing smartphones at anything that moves. On the other hand, I really want to tell many people, please hold the phone horizontally. We know how grass, tarmac and clouds actually look like. Good point. Good point. Well made.
Well, this is all the failure of various platforms like TikTok and things
yes, absolutely.
that recommend a vertical format. We don't like that.
No, we don't. No, absolutely not. We do not.
So moving on to story number 7, and Matt, you've got a story all about Wizz Air.
Indeed, yes, absolutely. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button, so just...
Well, this one is on the...
I can't believe it.
I know.
How did that happen?
I accidentally closed the show
Never
notes,
happened
everyone.
before.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, glossing over that and move over. Sorry, John's furious. Newsabc.net is the website, and the headline is Ryanair. It's not Ryanair at all. Wizz Air Hungary receives EASA AOC Austrian Aviation Net. So, the European Authority... Stop laughing, you lot. It's not helpful. The European Authority issued such a document for the very first time. However, supervision of the OL remains in Hungary. The low-cost airline Wizz Air Hungary will be the first airline in Europe to receive an air operator certificate from the European Aviation Safety Agency from the 1st of August 2020. In 2018, the possibility was introduced for airlines operating in several EU countries to apply for an EASA AOC. The legal basis is regulated in Regulation 2018/1139, if anybody wants to go and Google it. The advantage for the airlines is that EASA will be responsible for safety oversight and certification across Europe in the future. A few weeks ago, it became known that Lufthansa will also be checking under EASA's supervision in the future. We are very happy to have such a young and dynamic airline as the first air aircraft operator under EASA supervision.
Matt, feel
EASA.
free to say EASA.
EASA, my apologies.
EASA.
Okay,
You're
EASA,
welcome.
okay.
It'll save a lot of time. Let everyone know what you're talking about.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry. Did I mention I know nothing about aviation? I don't know if that came up at all.
That's all right. No problem.
The EU operating certificate is well suited for airlines such as Wizz Air, which have several operating bases in different EASA member states. As the centralised competent authority for the operation of Wizz Air, EASA will ensure an internationally recognised high standard of airline oversight, said EASA CEO Patrick Kai. Wizz Air states that it will continue to fly under the Hungarian flag and that the Hungarian Civil Aviation Authority will continue to exercise control over the operating licence and route permits. EASA oversight enables the airline to improve cooperation with national civil aviation authorities in their current and future markets. I'm pleased to announce that Hungary is the first member state to renew European airline rules, while Wizz Air Hungary is the first airline to have AOC overseen by EASA as the European authority responsible. This groundbreaking regulatory model between the Hungarian and European authorities underpins Wizz Air's growth ambitions and offers many new opportunities to innovate the industry as in the last 16 years. I mean, it's in some respects it makes a lot of sense, actually, doesn't it, to have sort of EU member states sort of operating under the same governing body. I mean, that does, to me, certainly seems to make reasonable sense. Obviously, doesn't apply to us Brits. Has everybody got a drink in hand? Because I was going to say the word Brexit.
I do.
Yeah, excellent. Cheers, Nick. I'll leave
Here's
you
to Brexit.
Yeah,
Cheers, mate.
cheers, everyone. Yes, it's been a long time since we've been able to use that word, isn't it? Do you remember the simpler times when all
Well,
we had
we've
to
been diverted a bit, but sadly it's still happening.
Well, yes, that is the rumour. Yes. But yeah, I mean, in lots of ways, this does. I presume, Nick, you would agree. I mean, this seems to make sense.
I don't know. It's all admin stuff, and I was at the pointy end, and quite honestly, we didn't worry too much about it. But yeah, occasionally we would fall foul of this, but this was something that for the average airline pilot was dealt with up at the offices. So.
Right.
Not really a major problem, but if it if it oils the wheels and gives you more freedoms and rights, then that's brilliant.
Well, there is that. That is true. That is true. Okay.
So, Nick, you've got the last story, and you're going to take us up to
thank God
supersonic
for that.
speeds.
The last story, marvelous. All right, this is.
Thanks for your support, Nick. Always appreciated.
This is from Sky News, simpleflying.com, no such thing, and ainonline.com. So thanks very much for those companies. Been many stories this week regarding the development of supersonic passenger aircraft. Hands up, all those who've been supersonic.
Oh, have you?
All right, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, just you then. Right.
Virgin Galactic has revealed designs for a supersonic passenger plane capable of flying 3 times the speed of sound. Now, that's pretty good, because you think of the Blackbird, the SR-71, that's kind of the speed it went. So we're talking pretty impressive. The top speed around 2,300 miles an hour. It could fly from London to Sydney in just 5 hours. I suspect it might run out of fuel, but I don't know. Or up to New York in less than 2, which I have to say is quite impressive. Virgin has teamed up with engine maker Rolls-Royce, if they're still in business, to work on the concept, which is still in the early stages. The Delta Wing, well, I can't imagine it being anything else, would cruise above 60,000 feet, far higher than the current passenger planes. Well, this is like old hat. This is what Concorde did. But would only have room for 9 to 19 passengers. I'm trying to work out why it would have a variable of 10 in there. But there you go. I guess it's the size they're going to build it. The project is separate from Virgin's bid to send customers to the edge of space. Blah. Now, that's the first one. So the competitors are Boom Supersonic, also teaming up with Rolls-Royce, getting in on this. They're a Denver-based startup, and they plan to build a very slow Mach 2.2 supersonic passenger aircraft called Overture. Marvelous. Able to fly 8,300 kilometers. Passenger flights are slated to begin in 2025. That's a little optimistic, I reckon, but there you go. Boom Supersonic is deepening its relationship with the engine maker. The two businesses have previously collaborated. That will step up as Boom goes shopping for engines. We share a strong interest in supersonic flight and in sustainability strategies. I love banishments to speak. For aviation with Boom, said Simon Carlisle, Director of Strategy at Roller. Unlike the fuel-guzzling and decidedly environmentally friendly Concorde, that's a bit rude. It was the first, and it did it. You haven't even built one yet. Overture plans to leave a smaller footprint in its wake. And I think that's the thing about all these airplanes. When you get one overhead, you don't want it to blow all your windows in. So that's what they're relying on, that it has an acceptably low sonic boom. So both Boom Supersonic and Rolls-Royce are humming the mantra of sustainability. I don't know how that goes. Can someone hum the mantra in the background, please? Mantra of sustainability, innovation, and zero net carbon futures. Okay, fair enough. That's a way to kind of make the fact that you've only got like 30 people traveling twice the speed of sound in a few hours. No one else can afford it, and they're going to claim they're sustainable. But there you go. Now, Russia, not to be left out, they do have a good history of building supersonic airplanes. Of course, their Concorde ski wasn't. Tu-144, if I'm not mistaken, had a disastrous start and had a very short life. And it was an entirely horrible airplane. However, they build a lot of jet fighters that are very capable. So we know they're pretty smart if they want to be. Russia's Ministry for Industry and Trade is moving forward on a number of fronts to develop civilian supersonic jets, including opening a tender soliciting. Are they allowed to do that? Soliciting technological innovation proposals. And the ministry is allocating the initial 230 million rubles. That's the equivalent of 15 pounds. Oh, I'm sorry, no, 2.5 million US dollars in 2020 and even more in 2021 for the tender. So they're also interested in getting into this market. But I suspect, we'll wait and see whether they do it. And lastly, the United States Air Force.
Not to be left out, obviously.
Haven't they got enough supersonic airplanes? For heaven's sake, they've got airfields full of them. But they want to build another one called Hermes. Anyone look up Hermes? Yeah, I bet it was a Greek god. A Georgia-based startup has picked up $1.5 million contract. That's not a lot of money. From the United States Air Force to work on a hypersonic aircraft. Well, if you're going to build a hypersonic aircraft, you're going to need considerably more than that. Let's try $1.5 billion. That's going to be closer. The USAF reckons there's potentially room for this type of aircraft in its VIP fleet. Well, I wonder who thought of that. Mm-hmm. Big question mark. The firm will team up with the Air Force's presidential. Oh, is that a clue?
No, absolutely not. Nothing that can get us sued, please, Nick. Moving on.
Executive Airlift Directorate, which is based at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Hermes says the money is to fund a rapid assessment of modifications to Hermes Mach 5 aircraft. The aircraft will support the presidential and executive airlift fleet. Well, that'll be something to see.
Quite. I mean, they're great looking aircraft, though, aren't they? I mean, it's...
Well, who wouldn't want a private jet or, like take yourself, your family, and a few mates for a few beers over to New York if it only takes you like 2 hours to get there?
Yeah, or maybe if we're talking United States, perhaps somebody wants to go and visit his golf course.
Yeah, you could get to a lot of golf courses
in no time at all.
Hermias.
Yeah.
And you could probably play like 3 rounds at 3 corners of the country all in one day. So, yeah.
Wow.
You could go and get your new camera even quicker, Nick.
I could, couldn't I? I could pop across to B&H and be back
Everyone's
again in time
shop.
for lunch.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Now, you need to go and get your wife, sir, for the next bit.
I shall just go and do
Who
that
are we
right
talking
now.
to?
With Carlos. Gilly is more than welcome
Get my
to it.
wife if you like.
Yeah,
but
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I can get a couple of dogs if you want.
The very exciting thing is it is competition winner time. So we are going to hopefully draw, if this goes according to plan. Probably not. And what we're going to try and do is read out the winning entry or play it, depending on what form it is. So the reason why I'm a bit scared is because I've essentially got to load whichever one it is into the playout system in time.
Well, when has one of your shows ever gone to plan?
Our producer is furious with you.
Despite John's best effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Very trying, I think, is the word. Very, very trying. It's all disco ready, says Richard. Says Richard Adams. Thanks for that. Yes, so it's... Air Commander is saying, any news on your 777 window, by the way? I'm sure Carlos will show it to you. It has arrived.
Oh, he's shown us
I
several
know.
times.
He's a bit proud of it, let's be honest.
Yeah, I'll pop it on the screen.
Really?
There we go.
There you go, look.
There we go.
Yeah,
So
all blurry and out of focus. Thanks for that.
What's all the junk on the right-hand side? Have they left the cabin attendant's telephone system connected?
No, that's all. That's the air show land yards, I should say, on there.
Oh, is that
But
what it
actually,
is?
the LEDs were Gemma's idea, to be fair.
Oh, I thought that was the sky roaring by.
Something like that.
In her own words, it's turned. In her own words, it turned a piece of
A naff bit of
200 and
plastic.
something off piece of scrap into a piece of artwork.
Right.
I quite agree. It looks a lot better.
That'll make all the difference. Some lights.
So
I'm still amazed that your wife hasn't divorced you. I'll be honest.
I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
Indeed. Okay. Yeah, Carlos, if you just want to explain the competition very quickly before we draw it and what happened.
So the competition then that we had was obviously to send in some feedback to the show, kind of a aviation in your life and kind of getting to know you sort of thing. It was an opportunity for us to find out more about you as a listener and also to hear some of your stories about your aviation that's appeared in your life over the years. And we've had some really, really good entries in actually to the show, haven't we, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I've got all the names here. All in here. So
Well,
everyone's
all three
name.
of them.
No. There's more than 3.
Oh,
Nick.
wow.
There's more than 3.
Well done.
Okay, so come on, let's get this in a hat and let's get this done. Let's find out who's...
I'll put these in a hat.
Okie dokie.
So Gemma's now going to come in and draw these because she's been itching to do this all night.
She misses us being in her kitchen, doesn't she?
You can get a cream for that. You
Hold
know.
on, I shall just if I put this camera on. Here we go. There we go.
Oh,
Right, so we'll put the hat here.
okay.
So there's the bits. There's the paper in there.
There's Gemma's hand. Look, very exciting.
Gemma's hand.
Yeah.
She's in her gardening attire, so
Right,
she's not.
Here we go. Oh, here we go.
Perhaps
She's having a bit of a mix round. Look, here we go.
There we go. It's having a mixed round of all these.
No, not that one, Gemma. No, the other one. It's a bit to the left.
So we've got one.
Okay, right.
And I'm just going to unravel it here. Let's have a look.
Go back to your camera if you wouldn't mind,
Oh,
please.
sorry. Apologies. Hold on. Let me just move that back to.
He's good at this, ladies and gentlemen.
Back to my
There
camera.
we go.
There we
Right,
go.
okay.
Right. So.
Hang on a minute. There was a lack of continuity there. How do we know that's still the same one?
Oh, thanks, Nick.
So I can confirm. Matt, would you like to announce our winner?
Andrew van der Sarg.
Oh, not a cloggy. Oh, no. They're always winning things.
Oh no! Stop it. Now this is behave. Now, yeah. So this is a read. So who's gonna do the honours and do the read?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
So congratulations, Andrew van der Sarg.
Okay, I'm just trying. Oh, I'm sorry, I've lost all communication. Sorry, I can't hear anything. Right, I'm just trying to get it open on the machine here, and it's not working. So he has won a £150 plane reclaimers voucher, which can be used on their online store. So it's a £150 voucher that can be used on the plane reclaimers store, and it's a very, very cool prize. And
I wanted a bit of a 737 so I could burn it. No, I'm only joking.
Of course you did. Yeah,
I really wanted something nice.
Absolutely. Well, yes. You can always rely on Nick for something to sort of spoil the fun there. Right. How are you getting on, Carlos? Have you got into the folder, or do I need to do it from here?
I'm just trying to access the folder now as we speak.
Okay. Good.
I couldn't see it in the email, so I'm going to go to
there's a folder that's got them all. Yeah, this is going really smoothly. Has anybody noticed how we didn't rehearse this? Yeah.
That's not a lot of good in there. That'd be like reading it from a postage stamp.
No, it's
right.
Is it always like this?
No, it's not. It's not.
It is. Come on, I've listened to a few of these.
Oh, how very rude.
You can't fool me.
Oh dear. Okay, never mind.
Here we go. Got it.
Oh, he's got
Right.
it, has he? Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah. All right. Go on then.
Right. Andrew
So our winning entry is
Andrew van der Sarg. Congratulations. So this is Andrew's My Aviation story as he knocks the camera off the end of his microphone stand.
good. That sounds expensive. Yes.
So he says, my love for aviation and travel began as a young kid. At the time, my family weren't able to afford travel overseas as it was quite expensive. And I clearly remember the many occasions of going to the airport to pick up friends and relatives arriving from overseas, and how awestruck I was by the idea of getting on a plane to exotic and faraway places. I was enamored seeing all the people walking around with big suitcases, and remember feeling a really strong desire to travel like them. My dream to travel came true when I was 10, and my parents booked a family holiday for my brother and I to the US to visit Disneyland. We flew on a Qantas Boeing 747-400 from Sydney to Los Angeles. It was just so exciting getting on board this huge aircraft and experiencing travel for the first time, looking out at the views from the window, having food and drinks served to me, and watching movies. In those days, it was on drop-down screens every few meters.
Oh, yes. I remember those, yeah.
It was everything I dreamed of and more. The flight was incredible. I also got to experience the joys of traveling to a country very different from my own, eating different kinds of food and learning about the culture and history. The first overseas trip really cemented my love for aviation and travel, and led me on to have many incredible travel experiences as an adult. There we go. Thank you, Andrew.
Lovely piece, absolutely. And this
That is brilliant, and I take it all back. He's an Australian, not a Dutchman.
Oh, is he? Okay.
So you can take your finger out of the dike.
Right, lovely.
Mate.
Okay, I'm not sure what to do with that information.
Yes, I know you don't need to do that in Australia, just in Holland.
Good, lovely. Anyway, actually, I have to say because we've had several entries, and we're going to make sure that all of them get played out. But I've got to read this one while you're here, actually, Nick, because one of the entries that we had was from a chap by the name of Gavin Dobson, and his email said, "Hi guys, I was going to write a long screed about how how the day you stop looking up when you hear an aeroplane is the day you bang down the coffin lid, but that's a bit depressing. So here's what my kids say of me. Hello Gavin, and welcome to the chase. And what do you do? I'm a pilot," says Bradley. "And what do you do in your spare time?" He says, "I tell people I'm a pilot, Bradley." Boom, boom. Keep up the good work. Gav Dobson, ex-Virgin 747s. So there we are. It's
isn't that brilliant? That's
absolutely
fantastic.
As I say, that I think actually ironically ended up
Very
being
good.
one of my favourite of them, just because of the simplicity. It's like Bradley. Obviously, they're referring. If you're not in the UK, they're talking about a TV program called the Chase, and Bradley Walsh is the host of that. That's why he's saying I'm a pilot, Bradley. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Shall we move on then to the next part of today's show? Is where we welcome the legend that is Captain Al, and it's time for this week's Plain Truth, which is all about airplane mode. Hello and welcome to another Plain Truths, and today we're going to be talking about airplane mode. Joining me today, as always, it's the legend that is Captain Al. Hi, Captain Al.
Hi, Matt, and I presume this isn't any reference to any sort of 1980s film.
Well, I mean, it can be if you like. We can fall down that wormhole anytime you like, my friend.
Can I have a vector, Victor? Roger, over.
Okay. Family show, ladies and gentlemen, family show.
Okay.
So yes, obviously, I mean, whenever we get on board, the first thing that happens is we are told to put our phones into airplane mode for when we are in the air. And the reason why I suppose I've got lots of questions about this, obviously, is because a lot of the onboard in-flight entertainment systems and stuff, some of those now require you to turn on your Wi-Fi in order for you to be able to use your iPad or your phone. In the cockpit to watch films that are not in the cockpit. You wouldn't be in the cockpit. Why would you be in the cockpit? You'd be in the cabin. So what is this airplane mode thing all about, and why was it originally brought in?
Okay, so the first thing to acknowledge is that your mobile phone is a transmitting and receiving device. So when you are connected to a network, it is permanently talking to the cells, the network, and saying, I'm here, hello. It's called handshaking, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, once the phone is in contact with the network and we're not using it, and we'll talk a little bit about data shortly, the phone goes into kind of like a low power mode. It goes into battery preservation. When you lose connection, so when you lose your bars, the phone ups its transmission level to try and find a cell. So it starts transmitting at a higher power to see if it can find a cell. And then if it makes contact, it will then renegotiate at what sort of power level it's going to communicate at. So that is our problem, because as we sort of move around in the aeroplanes, when we take off, bearing in mind that mobile networks for telephones weren't designed for operation at 37,000 feet. They're a ground-based thing. So as we climb up, mobile phones are starting to lose reception. So they start to increase the power that they transmit at. So logically, you wouldn't really want to have 200 or 300 transmitters in an aeroplane that may interfere with the navigation system, the autopilot system, or indeed the pilot communication system. So that's the main reason that we get you to put your phone into airplane mode, is to stop your phone transmitting. Now, what happens if it does? Well, the first thing that you need to know is it's not a disaster. Most modern aircraft are reasonably resilient to external interference. But Matt, have you ever put your phone next to a loudspeaker and hear it go?
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that is the 2G network communicating with the cell. So we have various levels of technology these days. We have 2G, we have 3G, 4G, and 5G. Now, predominantly, the 2G is the one that causes that kind of interference. We don't get so much of that these days because most mobile phone communications these days are using the other frequencies associated with 3G, 4G, 5G. However, they still cause interference. So just because we can't hear it doesn't necessarily mean it's not there. So you wouldn't really want your aeroplane's navigation system to be disturbed by mobile phones, I'm sure. So we get you to put it into airplane mode. If you're flying with a swanky airline that has a Wi-Fi network, we appreciate that your Wi-Fi capability of your phone is also a transmitter, but it's at a very low power and it's also at a constant power. So it's not continuously ramping up its power to try to make a connection. Same with Bluetooth, that's also a transmitter, but at very low power. Now, you may have at some point been asked to turn your phone off in flight. Is that something you've ever encountered?
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, not so much now. But if you go back sort of perhaps 10 years ago, perhaps when things like airplane mode weren't available, a lot of that I think was, instructions were to turn it off because they didn't know any different, perhaps.
Okay, so yeah, that's a fair point. But there are still occasions where the cabin crew will make an announcement that says that you are required to turn your phone off. And that is if we are doing an automatic landing in poor weather, because the regulator, EASA in Europe, stipulates that passenger mobile phones should be turned off to prevent any possibility of interference at a critical stage of flight. And I think anybody would agree that the aeroplane performing an automatic landing in visibility of less than 50 meters would be critical phase of flight.
Yes, certainly.
And there have been the odd occasion where autopilots have been electronically interfered with, and it's obviously difficult to narrow it down to a passenger mobile phone, but quite clearly having them turned off mitigates that threat.
Wow. So basically, if the cabin crew tell you to turn off your mobile phone, then there's probably a jolly good reason, in which case you really should do it.
Yes. I mean, it's like everything else. There will always be some people who will break the rules, but the majority of people will do it. The cabin crew will typically make that announcement before the seatbelt signs go on, because we usually have a pretty good idea that we're going to encounter foggy conditions. And it's, again, just for the safety of the aircraft and its occupants. No big deal. Nobody has to make a telephone call at that point, and it can certainly wait. I'm
sure there are many people who would strongly disagree with that, where they're convinced that their WhatsApp is life or death. But there we go. Thank you, Captain Al, as always. There you go. Who would have thought it? It's, as I say, because some flights and things, they do allow you to sort of like connect to Wi-Fi and all that kind of thing. And I genuinely, all the tech that I knew, I genuinely didn't realise that they actually, like when they can't find a network, the signal strength goes up and up and up as it's trying to look for a tower. So I mean that it sort of makes sense really that the risk of interfering with the technology is genuinely a possibility.
Oh, for sure. And the fact that the cell phone networks themselves hate having hundreds of people belting around trying to switch from one cell to the next. They find that very frustrating.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
There we go. Right. Okay. Well, it's time then to move on to... We've got no Armando, but at least we do have somebody who does vaguely know a little bit about the military. So if everybody is ready, I shall press the button.
Going to quickly speed through these because Nick's on the wine. Oh. So this story is on CBS News, and US astronauts Robert Behnken and Douglas Hurley, who flew the International Space Station in SpaceX's new Crew Dragon, splashed down in the capsule in the Gulf of Mexico on Sunday after a 2-month voyage that was NASA's first crewed mission from home soil in 9 years. Behnken and Hurley left the station on Saturday and returned home to land in the waves off Florida's Pensacola coast and a schedule at 2:48 p.m. Eastern Time, following a 21-hour overnight journey aboard Crew Dragon Endeavour. The successful splashdown, the first of its kind by NASA in 45 years, was a final key test of whether Elon Musk's spacecraft can transport astronauts to and from orbit, a feat no private company has ever accomplished before. On behalf of SpaceX and NASA's teams, welcome back to planet Earth, they said. Thanks for flying SpaceX, said SpaceX Mission Control, said upon the splashdown. Spectators in private boats surrounded the splashdown site, dozens of miles from shore, as SpaceX and NASA recovery teams used a crane to hoist the spacecraft out of the water and onto a boat. He said that thanks for doing the most difficult parts and the most important parts of human spaceflight, getting us into orbit and bringing us home, Duncan said, SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne, California, as the hatch door was opened. So he said, I'm just proud to be a small part of this whole effort to get a company and people to and from the space station, Hurley said, giving a thumbs up as he was wheeled out of the spacecraft on a stretcher, a normal procedure as astronauts adjust to Earth's gravity. And for the return sequence on board, thrusters had 2 sets of parachutes that worked autonomously to slow the acorn-shaped capsule, bringing Duncan and Hurley's speed of 17,500 miles an hour, blimey, it's a bit faster in my truck, in orbit down to 350 miles an hour upon atmospheric re-entry, and eventually 15 miles per hour at splashdown. Oh, that's better. During the re-entry to Earth's atmosphere, the capsule's outer shell withstood temperatures higher than 3,500 Fahrenheit, while Duncan and Hurley were wearing SpaceX's white suits strapped inside the cabin, experienced just 85 degrees Fahrenheit. The pair were due to undergo medical checks on shore at Pensacola ahead of a flight to NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. There we go. A bit of space news.
What a fabulous achievement. There are a few things to say about this. First of all, I just love SpaceX's enthusiasm. You see their employees when they're accomplishing something like this, they are just beside themselves with joy at the fact that they're getting their country and the world back into space again in an independent company, albeit with NASA's assistance. I think it's fantastic. But we've all seen their boosters and their ability to land back autonomously on their landing pads and therefore be reused. I think that is fantastic. I can't wait for the day when SpaceX start doing that with their capsules, because that will be, it'll be like every sci-fi dream I've ever had, watching one of these capsules come back and land itself under control on planet Earth, rather than having to rely on rather ancient technology of parachutes. But I just take my hat off to these guys. I think they're fantastic.
Well, and also, I mean, it's all about sustainability, isn't it? At the moment, the less of the aircraft that you have to throw away, I suppose, with each mission, the more chance you have of it being much more affordable for everyone as well.
Oh, very true. Yeah, and I think we all have to agree with that. But if there's one thing I'm going to say, can you get someone to look at the design of your spaceships? God, they look naff. They look like someone who's...
I quite like the new ones.
They look like someone who's suiting up to go into the sewers. They're just horrible. They're great big willy boots on them and all that stuff. Oh, come on. Get something snazzy, a bit retro, perhaps. It looks horrible. I don't know. What does everyone else think?
Oh, I don't know. Well, let's see. I don't know if I dare open that can of worms. Really, it's like, So I see what. So Tanya Wyman is saying that essentially, I agree. Nick, SpaceX is kicking butt. Look, there
they are. They're doing a damn good job, I have to say. And the rest of the world must be very envious. And I think this is a fantastic collaboration between government and independent industry, private industry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting sort of step there. It's I mean, I was watching it on Saturday in the bath, of all places, as you do.
As you do? Really? You have a TV in the bath?
Yeah, literally splashdown.
It's waterproof.
Literally splashed down. Yeah, it was. It was one of those once in a lifetime things, wasn't it? Really, I mean, because it really was a bit of a game, or potentially a game changer, as you say, because it's sort of government / private enterprise.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's fantastic for the confidence and the enthusiasm of America to re-enter the space race,
Absolutely,
as it were. To get themselves back on a footing where they can feed their own people into the International Space Station without having to rely on just one country.
And actually, I mean, kudos as well to the people that were running, because obviously it was all done by NASA, and because it was all streamed on YouTube. So gone are the days now where you require like a TV channel to basically take the coverage and all that kind of thing, and in the hope that there might be enough interest, for people to do it. I mean, and there were millions of people watching this YouTube stream when it was all happening. I mean, it was just, it was great.
You're right, Matt. It takes me back to the days when Apollo were flying their missions, and the lack of interest for the American people had got to the point where no one was watching.
No, indeed.
It had become very yawning, every day. It's not like that, and people should really acknowledge the fantastic skill of the engineers and the astronauts who take part in this sort of thing. It really is an exciting event.
Indeed. Absolutely. It was apparently it was also a bit of a test flight, because I think it was the first time that it had passengers on board as well. So it's I think it would take 4 or 5 people. I think actually the module, but obviously it only had Bob and up to 7 apparently. I'm being told in my ear.
Well, it would only
was
take
it Bob and Doug?
2 or 3.
Bob and Doug, was it? I think. Yeah.
I think we probably get the APG crew in, but I don't think we get any more than that.
Actually, on that note, SpaceX.com, if you take yourselves over to the website, it's a pretty awesome website. There's some great shots of the internals and the capsule and stuff itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, those guys didn't do a lot of button pushing, did they? It's not like the old days where they had a proper spaceship to fly.
All that touchscreen.
It was a bit
rubbish,
like an Airbus.
Yeah, right. Okay, anyway, we're going to move on now before we get into even more trouble. And the next story in the military this week is from the airforcemag.com, and slightly sort of... I don't know, a slightly nerve-wracking story, I suppose, because several of us have got very fond memories of Mildenhall. RAF Mildenhall UK will remain open and keep its American refueling and special operations missions through the 2020s, reversing the Pentagon's original 2015 plan to consolidate bases and infrastructure across Europe. The Pentagon last week announced broad plans to downsize the troop presence in Germany, including keeping the 100th Air Refueling Wing and 352nd Special Operations Wing at Mildenhall, instead of moving them to Germany airbase in 2022. The 2015 European Infrastructure Consolidation Plan was unpopular and long targeted for change, Defence Secretary Mark Esper said on the 5th of August. The military has debated for years whether to keep airmen at Mildenhall, the only permanent US airbase air refueling wing in Europe. It made obvious strategic sense in the wake of the National Defence Strategy, Esper said during an online Aspen Institute event. We're keeping 2,500 airmen there. He did not offer specifics on why it was strategically beneficial to remain in the United Kingdom instead of Germany. Pentagon, US, European Command and Air Force officials argue that stationing tankers and special operations forces in the UK will ensure the uninterrupted readiness and responsiveness from I'm terribly sorry, the show notes jumped there and I've completely lost my place. The 100th Refueling Wings tankers are constantly in demand for operations across the continent and to support aircraft deploying to the Middle East. In 2015, the 352nd Special Operations Group became the 352nd Operations Wing as it brought on the CV-22s. When the Defence Department outlined its vision to consolidate unused infrastructure across Europe in 2015, officials at the time pointed out that Spangdahlem, I'm very sorry.
Spangdahlem.
Spangdahlem, thank you, Nick, had expanded expanded and updated its facilities. Two F-16 squadrons there also consolidated into one in 2010, and an A-10 squadron left in 2015, making room for aircraft under a new mission. Moving Special Operations Forces, including CV-22s and MC-130s to Germany, would have put them closer to Army Special Forces. Officials pushed for the 100th ARW's move from 2022 to 2027 before putting it on hold earlier this year. Wing officials said early in the process that transition plans had started, including moving some support to nearby RAF Lakenheath, UK, though none of the steps were irreversible. So
that's Heath and Lake.
Heath and Lake, right?
Yeah, you said that wrong.
I don't think I did.
I'm joking.
That's one of the things. As I was going to say, that's one of the few things I can get right. It's just Lake and Heath I'm good with, but there we are. Honestly, it's there's Tony S apparently in the chat room. I'm being told in my ear. Just bear with me a moment while I try and get that. Good. There we go. Good news for the region. Mildenhall is a massive employer, which is a really good point, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It is.
That's what
point,
she said.
Quite. It is a good employer. But there we are. On to the next story then. And Nick, I think that is with you.
Okay, then this is a good news story. So this is about a KC-135 crew. And for those who don't know what that is, that's an ancient old aeroplane built in 1957 that has been the mainstay air-to-air refueling aircraft for the United States Air Force since then. And it is only just now being replaced by a highly controversial and, mainly speaking, unserviceable Boeing thing. Anyway, it was flying because it was asked to do so, and came off from the Anderson, which is a fantastic name for an Air Force base in Guam. And it was part of the 203rd Air Refueling Squadron of the Hawaii National Guard. So presumably they fly with those little ropes of flowers around their necks, which I think is very quaint. And the 171st Air Refueling Wing of the Pennsylvania Air National Guard. Wow, that's fantastic. They found 3 missing mariners during a search and rescue mission. And I think those 3 guys probably very happy that these fine folk were airborne on that day. So it was on July the 29th, and the mariners, I think we could call them sailors, or would you prefer if I use the term seamen, aboard a 23-foot white and blue skiff. I'm not sure what a skiff is, but I'm sure John will let us know, which departed Pulawat Atoll, intending to travel a mere 21 miles to a light rowing boat. That's
that is apparently what it is. John's just told us.
I've been told. So they were heading for Palup. However, they never made it and were reported missing. Joint Rescue Subcenter Guam received the notification of an overdue skiff last seen in the vicinity of Chuuk, and requested our assistance, said U.S. Air Force Major Sean Roberts. Sounds very American. The 506 Air Expeditionary Aerial Refueling Squadron, say that when you've had a bottle of wine. Assistant Director of Operations said, once notified, we began immediately working a plan to launch crews and locate the missing vessel. Long story short, almost 3 hours into their mission, flying at about 1,500 feet, the crew located the mariners, I prefer seamen, on the tiny island of Pikalot Yap. I just want to say that again for, the effect. Pikalot Yap. Fantastic. We were towed. We were toward the end of our search pattern. So they're about to go home and leave these poor mariners to die, said the U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Jason, I won't pronounce that, the 135 pilot, Palmyra Yen. It sounds a bit Japanese. Well, the yen does, anyway. He said, we turned to avoid some rain showers, and that's when we looked down and saw an island. So we decided to check it out in case there were naked women on it. And that's when we saw the SOS and a boat right next to it on the beach. From there, we called in the Australian Navy because they're really good, and they're in Australia. And they had 2 helicopters nearby. Australian Navy had 2 helicopters nearby? Okay, whatever. That could
what it says in
assist
the story.
and land on the island. The Australian Navy, HMS Canberra, was also in the region and agreed to divert and provide search sorties with embarked helicopters whilst FSS Independence departed from Yap to assist. I love this story. A helicopter crew from Canberra delivered supplies to the stranded mariners, whilst the US Coast Guard, HC-130 Hercules, God, they have some kit, these boys, don't they? From Air Station Barbers Point, Hawaii, airdropped radios so they could listen to the cricket score. I don't know, perhaps they were listening to the baseball, and a message block informing them, I do apologize, there's motion by my front door, informing them of the FSS Independence and its intention to come and rescue them to take them home. Partnerships, said the US Coast Guard Captain Christopher Chase. This is what made this search and rescue case successful. Through coordination with multiple response organizations, we were able to save 3 members of our community and bring them back home to their families. Fantastic story, actually, when you think about the nations involved and the coordination required to get all this sorted. And congrats to the tanker crew who don't normally look out of their windows. They're renowned for that. And the fact that they actually had their eyeballs on stalks this day and spotted these boys. So, good job.
Goes to show that writing,
well done.
Goes to show that writing SOS in the sand does genuinely work.
Well, it does. And I hate to say it, but I go back to my combat survival courses of 45 years ago. That's exactly what we were taught to do, whether it be trampling it in the snow or building it with rocks or whatever.
Indeed.
You have to attract attention, and a damn great SOS on a beach usually does that. But the important point, folks, is when you leave, remember to take it down. Otherwise, you'll be causing havoc for years
to come. Yeah, absolutely,
exactly.
that's true. And it's conspiracy theories.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, everyone was saying Amelia Earhart landed there.
Well, quite absolutely. And if any of the pronunciations in tonight's story that Nick read out caused you any form of offence at all, then please send your comments to IamOffended at apg.com. That is, IamOffended at apg.com. Thanks for that. And
Poor
that's where we.
That's not fair.
And that is where we bring the military segment to a close. I'm delighted to say, apparently, we're running smack bang on time, aren't we? Doing well.
I can't believe it after my garrulous comments.
After all your best efforts, indeed.
Yes.
This is the thing. It was taken into account in planning, we're being told in Norrie. Okay, so it's time to move on to the next thing. And this involves a great chat, actually, that we had. Now, some of you may remember a certain couple of legends. I'm going to refer to them as legends because, as many of you know, the very first podcast that I ever listened to was actually produced by these guys. We haven't heard from them for a very long time. The last time we heard from Steve was probably a Christmas show. I don't know how many years ago now, long old time. But I basically, a couple of Saturdays ago, got to sit down and have a lovely chat with the lovely people that are Grant Mccarron and Steve Fisher. Hi guys, well, as some of you may have noticed, I've been in charge of most of the social media feeds over the last couple of weeks, and I was having a thumb through and saw several conversations going on, and I stumbled across a certain chap by the name of Grant Mccarron, who some of you may remember existed at one time, and it got me thinking. I thought, we haven't heard from him for a while, and then when I was looking, there appears to be a new project on the horizon, so I thought, let's have a chat. So joining me right now is Well, he's brought a friend with him as well, which I'm even more excited about, to be honest, because, we've all spoken to Grant before. Anyway, hi, Grant. How are you?
Hey, I'm Grant Mccarron, and you may remember me from such podcasts as Playing Crazy Down Under, The Australia Desk, and even Flying Down Under. That's right, I'm back. And I'm not just alone. I'm joined by the man who makes me sound good. Hi, Steve.
It's a wonder I get a word in edgeway, isn't it?
No change there. No change there at all. Oh, dear.
That's why he's the presenter and I'm the producer these days.
You can never get a word in edgeways. I have a similar problem, I'll be honest, but the less said about that, the better. Gents, it is a real pleasure. Now, some of you may know that the very first podcast that I ever listened to was your Avalon coverage many years ago on PDCU. So it really is a pleasure to hear that there's a new offering in the works.
Yes. Oh, see, yes. Grant and I don't cue off each other so well when we're looking at it. Yes, that's true.
He tries not to look at me. He really does try not to look at me. Not a good look. Not a good look.
Yeah. Yes, there are a number of new ventures in the works, and we sort of moved off into some other spaces. I sort of moved off into news reading a little bit, and I'm doing some production work for some radio people, which is covering topics that are not only aviation, shock horror, but Grant and I have we've been producing some content for some aviation magazines here, and now we're moving off into doing some more customised work for, in this case, some defence contractors, which is really exciting.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's right, mate.
So, well, tell us a bit about it. So, what is the podcast? What's it all about? And how do people get hold of it?
Well, I'm going to tell you about a couple of podcasts first, because what happened was Steve wound up, as many of you may remember, back in the Playing Crazy Down Under days, the good old PCDU, I was chasing hot air balloons and working as an ops manager and maintenance manager and so on for a commercial ballooning company, like a small charter general aviation crew. And Steve was driving trains. And so we both had a bit of time to invest in what we were doing with Playing Crazy. But then I wound up doing a whole lot of work with a defence contractor as a project manager in IT, and Steve wound up doing a whole lot of work with other companies. He became, if I remember correctly, Steve, you became a depot manager with the train company, or as I called you, the despot manager. And you wound up... there were many, trust me. But, and we just lost a lot of time. We couldn't keep PCDU up, and unfortunately it pod faded. And aside from doing the occasional Australia Desk, which was a spin-off, in fact, PCDU was a spin-off from the Australia Desk, which was a segment we did for the airplane geeks. And we found ourselves having too much time and wound up doing these. We were trying to put too much news into the Australia Desk. We only had a small window. They didn't want us taking over the airplane geeks. So we wound up producing the Playing Crazy from that. And then when Playing Crazy pod faded, we did once a year or so, we'd do an Oz Desk. And things bubbled along like that. And then, Steve, you wound up driving for V-Line. It's a regional... maybe I should have called it Acme Train, but it's the regional trains for Victoria. And so Steve's back being a train driver, which has been great for his time to work on podcast production. And of course, I'll let Steve tell you about all the fandangled goozies that he's got, because he's gone way off the deep end as an audiophile for podcast production and audio production, which is fantastic because it's making me sound good. And the two of us wound up doing a show which is we just started last year. Unfortunately, it's on hiatus at the moment due to COVID-19. It's for general aviation. So as you may know, COVID-19 is destroying general aviation around the world in many ways. So we were doing this general aviation show with Aviation Trader. So aviationtrader.com.au. It's a buy and sell aircraft kind of magazine. It's also got some articles and things like that. It's a paper one that comes out. Everyone loves the paper one. You can find it all over the place here in Australia. And it's also online. And for ages, we'd been talking with the crew from there, and they'd been wanting to do some work with us. It hadn't been the right time for them or for us. And finally, the stars aligned. And Steve, how many episodes of that did we get out? We got out a few. It was about 8, maybe 10.
I think about 8, yeah. So we've done about 8 of them, and that's been an opportunity for that magazine to, go to some of their advertisers and try and market, like a value add thing for them. So bit of an experiment for them and a bit of an experiment for us too, but, into more enterprise podcasting. But, that's it seems to be working well. And these days, it's interesting when we started back in our case, in about 2009, I mean, when we would call people and ask them to come on a podcast, you'd really have to explain what a podcast was.
Yeah.
And particularly when we were talking to politicians, you'd say, podcast. I think, what's a podcast? Oh, it's a radio show. Oh, radio show. Okay. And then they understood what that was. And, you could sort of work it that way. Now, these days, of course, and particularly in the COVID era, I mean, there's millions of podcasts around. So people now understand it. But I think, importantly, business understands that better. So that's where we're trying to push. In our case, we understand aviation, so that's a logical starting point for us. And we'll see where it goes.
What's Steve? What's the premise behind this sort of general aviation feel to that particular podcast? Then is it talking to like the local airports and things, and the people that are flying them?
Well, it's more about talking to industry players and industry partners, and in the case of Aviation Trader, they're trying to bring on people that advertise with them, so that they can come on and talk about products and services that they offer. So we can tailor a conversation that way, because Grant and I are we know aviation, we've been around it a long time, so we know how to interview people, and perhaps in some cases we pioneered, at least in this part of the world, how to do that. So we would hope that the people around the place know us well enough that they're comfortable talking to us, and we just try and keep it conversational rather than make it sound like a what do they call it, like a infomercial. We're not really trying to do that. It's a bit of a mix of that and a bit of a mix of just storytelling, which has been it's been really good.
I bet. And of course, everybody knows. And I mean, both you guys are well known for, especially with the air show circuit. Obviously, you guys are well known for providing commentary and things at these things. So it seems a nice little neat fit, if you like, to the work that you guys have been doing already.
Yeah, and it's look, it's called Airwaves by Aviation Trader, if you want to go and look it up. Some of the latter episodes had content that I recorded while I was in Oshkosh last year, back in the before times. And look, it was really starting to ramp up and really starting to go, and people were getting interested in it. We had quite a few downloads, and the Aviation Trader advertisers and so on were really getting quite interested in it when all hell broke loose, and it's all just been put on hold. So hopefully once the dust settles from this sometime next year, we'll pick it all back up again. But so that was the GA one. That was Steve and I both co-hosting, and Steve working his audio magic to produce the final results. But the next one is I've had an article printed in Australian Defence magazine. I know some of the crew involved. I've done if you remember Plane Crazy Down Under, I did an episode on Pitch Black 2014, which is a major Air Force exercise. We've got people from all around the world. Air Forces come in. It was really pretty full on, and I was privileged to be taken around with a couple of folks from the Australian Defence media kind of world, and foreign ones as well. And we got the VIP treatment. We were right beside gable markers, flying between air bases. It was fantastic stuff, and I had a lot of fun putting out that content. And because of that, so I've got some contacts, and they called us up on time, and they said, "Hey, Grant, we want to do a podcast, and we want to do it with you. We think you know what you're doing," which, shock horror. So
no accounting for taste. Yeah.
I know. So I put a proposal in, called up Steve and said, "Hey, we've got another one." And from that, Australian Defence Magazine podcast came along, and I co-host that with Catherine Ziesing. She'll kill me. I know. I just know her as Kath, and she's a lovely lady, and she really knows her stuff with defence here in Australia and industry and so on. And so what's happening is the two of us co-host, and we get some people on. And episode 2 and 4 that have come out in the stream so far have been on the whole strategic view, funding, finance, what's happening in the whole Asia Pacific area, the world that we're seeing it at the moment, plus also supply lines and supply line vulnerabilities. We've had first episode was Kath and I talking about the Australian Defence Magazine Congress event and some of the views there in the magazine, just an intro and so on. And the third one was about the Australian Industry and Defence Network, AIDN. And the fifth one that should be dropping any time next week as we record this is about locks and security locking and things. And that was really, if you're into, like, even if you're not into locks, it was pretty fascinating. And
it was
we're lining up. Yeah, it was a good one, wasn't it? Even Steve was sitting there editing it going, wow, cool.
Well, it always helps if the content doesn't make the producer nod off, I find. That's often the way forward.
Yeah, and it's good stuff. And so Australian Defence Magazine, that's the new one. So if you look for Australian Defence Magazine podcast, or if you go to australiandefence.com.au and then click on podcast up the top, you'll get to hear Kath and I interviewing some really interesting people. And if the quality sounds really good, which many people are talking about how good the quality is, that's 100% thanks to Steve.
Absolutely.
Well,
he's the expert, let's be honest.
Well, it's also to do with that fancy new Rode microphone Grant's got there. It took me... How long have we known each other, Grant? 12 years? It's taken me 11.5 years to get him to upgrade that microphone.
Well, the first episode I was using a headset that I've got with a microphone and it just wasn't working. And Steve's like, oh, you don't sound good. I've done everything I can. And I'm listening to it and going, oh, yeah, that's not good. So I literally, Steve said, this is the one you want. I found it on storedj.com.au and raced out immediately that day, bought the arm you can see here for suspending it and everything, and just got everything and went, stuff it, we're doing this properly, and the benefits have been brilliant.
I bet. I mean, it sounds like a fascinating project. And tell us where we can find that again.
That's look for Australian Defence Magazine podcast in your favourite podcatcher. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. It should be on Deezer and Spotify and all those ones. Otherwise, you can go to australiandefence.com.au and go to the podcast. Just click up the top at podcast and you'll see them all there. And it's got links to all those ones I just mentioned, plus, of course, the RSS feed for those of us who like to do it seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do have it on valid comment that you can find it on most of the other podcatchers around.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think too, like, part of the journey here, for me at least, in this podcasting space, and the reason I got into podcasting was because I've always just, probably because I'm actually a really boring person, I've always been fascinated with talk radio, and so it was a way into that. And I've had the chance now to actually go and do some actual talkback radio. It's awesome, but sort of along this journey, it's been a learning about how to produce audio better. And I'm not a sound engineer, but it's allowed me to mix with radio industry people here. And I have learned heaps from that. So we are now able to, a lot of people are starting podcasts now, and all you potential podcasters out there, if you're watching this, we notice that podcasts come along and they last 5-6 episodes, and people think, oh, hang on, this actually takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to make it sound good, and it takes a little bit of investment too. So we think we've perfected that now, and we're always trying to work to make it sound better. But it's really gratifying now that people are coming to us and saying we like the quality of the work that you're producing, we take some pride in that, because we've basically learnt that as we go. And I reckon Carlos would be in the same, because I have a look at some of the gear that you guys have got in your studio, and I think he's got bitten by the same bug.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, 100%. And we've been so lucky, really, as I say, because this lovely studio that I'm sat in here now, with all its fancy chroma key walls and all that kind of thing, beautiful sound desks, we've got Focusrite boxes and all sorts, all plugged into this thing. We've been so lucky, really. I mean, it's all been funded by our wonderful listeners. So, I mean, it's, our quality is down to their awesomeness, let's be honest. But look, they sound like really exciting projects. Steve, I actually remember one of your very first, I remember you tweeting one of your first news bulletins that you did, and we actually did play a snippet on the show because we were all so excited to hear your voice back on the airways in some form. So it was a real privilege to sort of listen and stuff. Now, look, I've got you guys on here. I know we try desperate to avoid that C word throughout most of our podcast, because
What, commitment?
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah, that's a much better version. We try desperately to avoid that C word because it is decimating the industry to which we all dearly love. But I can't have you guys on and not ask, I mean, what has life been like during all this for you guys in Australia?
Oh, I haven't really
noticed.
There's
been Australia, and then there's been Victoria, and then there's been Melbourne, where we live.
We are the infectious state.
Right.
Yeah, it's not Victoria anymore. They're calling it Sictoria now down here.
Oh my goodness.
Look, here's the deal, right? When all this started back in, God, was it only March? It feels like, as everyone's been saying, it's like every month feels like a year and every day feels like nothing. But what's happening is, when this first started off, we had a couple of cruise ships come in and disgorge some passengers who were infected, and that was known as the cruise ship gate kind of thing.
Wow.
Caused a lot of stuff happening, but that was all based on clusters, and everyone jumped on it, and we locked down, and we got over it. Then there was the problem that's hit here in Victoria, which is where some companies that were doing the quarantining, because anyone coming into the country had to quarantine for 14 days. Yeah. Nowadays, you have to pay for that yourself. So if you want to come to Australia and you can convince Australia to let you in first, you then have to pay about $3,000 for a fortnight to stay in a hotel and be checked and all that. I've got a friend who's just come back from the US, and fortunately she had her flight booked before they started that, so she's not being charged. But anyone coming in these days will get charged $3,000 for the privilege of being put in a hotel for 2 weeks. And unfortunately, one of the companies running that down here in Melbourne, apparently we're still waiting for all the official wording to come out, but there's a very serious inquest going into it, because it turns out they were hiring people online without putting training, just chucking them in there, no real indication of how to use PPE properly. And there's some stories of guards getting naughty with people in the rooms. There's stories of people sharing lighters, guards escorting people.
Is any of this going to get me sued?
No, that's all public. That's all public.
It's all public knowledge. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
No, it's to be here in Melbourne at the moment. We tried opening up again, and the numbers kind of really spiked. Of course, it's the middle of winter here, so maybe that's playing into it. Who knows? But yeah, it's a pretty depressed place at the moment. The state's the Melbourne area, the Melbourne metropolitan region has been basically turned into East Berlin. We can't get out.
Wow.
And
we're trapped. We're trapped.
We basically, we're not allowed. We're in a stage 3 lockdown here now.
It's stage 4 minus, because we have to wear masks now. Right. It's mandatory. If you go out, you must wear a mask.
I mean, now I work in an essential service, so I have to go into work into the city each day, and it's pretty depressing. It's a pretty soulless, lifeless place at the moment.
Ghost town.
Yeah, it really is. It's really sad. So hopefully we will. I mean, not hopefully we will. We will get through this. But it's for Victoria at least. It's going to take months still, and let's just hope we all get through it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know Grant. Obviously, I mean, it's a great opportunity to start new projects like this, I guess, when we've all been having a bit more time at home than we'd normally have. But I mean, I know obviously Kit, we worry about, obviously, bless her, because if some of the people we know, if they get this, it's bad news, isn't it?
Oh yeah, she'll be in ICU if she gets this, and very likely intubated as well, because of all the other hassles she's got going on. I mean, I'm running a risk because I'm overweight. Hello, that's a target thing. So there's all that kind of stuff.
You're not overweight, Grant. You're just warm. That's the
warm and cuddly. Warm and cuddly, boys. Warm and cuddly. Or as a Polish friend used to call it, duża poduszka, big pillow. But anyhow, but the upshot is that, look, I kind of hinted it right at the start that I haven't really noticed a difference. I was working at home 1 or 2 days a week anyhow, and the introverted geek shall inherit the earth, all that kind of stuff. But
it's your time to take over. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, our efficiency for podcast production has gone through the stratosphere.
Absolutely.
Because Well, we've been doing this project for the Defence Ready series of seminars, a group up in the Hunter Valley, Hunter region, and it's basically Gold Group working with the Hunter Defence Task Force, and they're producing this series of seminars that were supposed to be face-to-face but are now webinars and all that, and they've contracted us to do these half-hour audio teasers to get people interested in attending the seminars. And yeah, we've just plowed through all that, and I'm working 9 to 5 from home for defense, and on the sides before and after and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes for a lunch I'll take a break for an hour and record an interview, and then Steve's doing his magic around driving trains, and we've churned through 4 episodes.
Not while I'm driving trains, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
That would be quite a cab full of kit, let's be honest.
Well, back in the old days, I did used to get the occasional text from a certain Mr. Steve who'd be sitting somewhere in a driver's lounge, or maybe in the back of a train that somebody else was driving, and he'd be like, "Oh, I'm just banging out a few cuts and a few edits and all this, and I'm being paid by the trains as well." And it was like, "Yeah, thanks, mate."
Yeah, great.
I was there trying to slave away and keep a commercial ballooning organisation running, and
Might I just add to that the word allegedly?
Yeah.
Come on, you're not working for them anymore. You can say this.
Yes.
Who cares about those guys? Yeah.
Oh, well, look, guys, no one is more excited to hear that you guys are producing podcasts again. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you guys. Give yourselves one more plug.
Well, if you'd like to hear some of my other work, you can look up Food Bites with Sarah Patterson. It's a fantastic food podcast that we're doing.
We love food. Yeah.
Yes. Well, yes, we've done over 100 of those now, and I'm not in them, but I produce them, so you know it's going to sound fantastic.
Absolutely. Amen to
and
that.
Ruck and Roll, RUCK and N Roll is another one. Great music and sport comedy podcast. Another one I produced, and great shows. We could always use more listeners, so look those up in your favourite podcatcher.
Seriously, how do you have time to actually go and drive a train?
Oh, I squeeze it in here and there.
He just ignores the honey-do list that Kathy keeps giving him. She's up to volume 7, and
okay.
Yes, can't paint that house today. Sorry,
far too busy. Absolutely.
Melbourne weather, terrible. Earning money. No, if you want to find all of us together in one spot as well, you can go to southernskiesmedia.com.au. So that's southern, like the south, skies, SKIES, media.com.au, and you'll see references to Plane Crazy, the Ozdesk. We've got a website that collects all the Ozdesk episodes we've done. Doesn't quite have all of them on there yet. I'm trying to get time to load them, especially the radio play ones that we did. I think Steve's got some grey hairs or lack of hair because of those ones. They were effectively like doing a 10-minute long radio drama with sound effects, stories, everything. Oh, they were awesome. Some of those ones when we were coming back and like when we tried to fly a hot air balloon to the US and then we swam the way and then we were coming back and the boat sank and we wound up beached Asbro on a Kiwi beach with a friend of ours from New Zealand. It was just hilarious fun. But yeah, so they're all up there. It's also got links to Australian Defence Media, and then you can find links to Defence Ready and links to Food Bites and Ruck and Roll and one of the other groups that Steve does some work for. So it's all there, and also links to the 2 DVDs that we produced back in the day in 2014 and 2016. We produced 2 airshow DVDs. Absolutely awesome content, but it just burnt us out to do them, so we haven't done any more since. So yeah, southernskiesmedia.com.au, and as more stuff comes to light, we'll chuck it on there.
Fantastic.
And if anybody's out there and they're thinking they'd like to, they need advice on podcasting or production, drop us a line. Happy to help. We're always happy to help. The one great thing we found in the aviation podcasting community particularly is that everybody pitches in. It's not one competing against the other. We can all make great content. And we're happy to. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, and we're very lucky. I mean, we've all got very close ties with yourselves and with airline pilot guy and airplane geeks and all that kind of thing. It's just one big happy family, and that's one of the lovely things about the aviation community, isn't it? We're all friends together.
You bet.
Yeah. Although Rob Mark's still spending the money I sent over after I sold him the kidney to allow us on the show, but that's a whole different story.
That's another
Who
conversation.
is that guy anyway? I've never heard of him.
I don't know. I think he's doing something with flying, but,
Right,
yeah.
okay. Anyway, before one or other of us all get sued, it's been great to chat to you guys. Armando will be delighted to hear that there's an aviation a military podcast out there for him to enjoy. And look, you guys clearly don't have anywhere near enough to do, so we're always looking for military-based content. So feel free to create an Oz desk for us as well. We will always be delighted to receive it. But,
we'll see what we can do, mate, because... Yeah, careful what you wish for. We'll see what we could do. But the fun part is I'm one of the people who, unlike Captain Al, really enjoys the military section of your show. I personally believe in the aviation geek version of 50 Shades of Grey. I took a photo of it at an air show one time, and you had all these military aircraft in all these different shades of grey. Yeah. And I posted it. It was like all the tails and the aircraft and all that. And it was like 50 Shades of Grey, airplane geek version.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, look, we'll have to somehow find an impossible time. So I guess the only trouble with Armando being in Charlotte and you being in Australia is have to find some impossible way of the skies aligning to maybe do something together. But thank you very much for your time today, guys. It's been great to chat to you. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Hey, no worries, mate. It's been awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, how nice was it to catch up with those legends of podcasting, seriously.
Bring back PCDU.
I know, absolutely. As I told you, that their Avalon coverage was the first podcast I ever listened to, genuinely. So, I've got them to thank for this new weekly nightmare.
I have a bone to pick with those guys.
Oh, dear. Here we go. Yes, go on.
I sent Grant a piece of audio to the song of Waltzing Matilda, which was a song about his very last show when he used to be a regular podcaster under a different name. And he never played it.
Did he not? Oh, dear.
I'm close to, I've waited like 3 years.
Right, you've been very patient, yeah.
Yeah, I have, but I'm close to dropping him from my birthday card list.
No, absolutely. Well, if I know Grant... Quite often, as we all know, who's forever looking for glitches or things that we've said wrong, where we all end up with tweets at some point. So I dare say, Nick, there will be a tweet response forthcoming at any moment.
Yeah, like in 3 days, if it's Grant's usual response rate.
Absolutely. But it was so nice to hear from them, and so great to hear from Steve as well. I mean, we've been lucky that we've had Grant on a few times. I think... John was saying he'll remind me in a minute how many times he'd been on, but Steve had only actually been on the once, really. So it was lovely to have a good chat with him. And,
he is a great friend. They're both great friends of the aviation community. They're funny guys, and they know an awful lot of stuff, which is brilliant.
Absolutely
fascinating to listen to.
Yeah. Grant's been on 12 times, I'm being told in my ear. There we are. And I think this is Nick's 20th appearance, is it not? Do I seem to recall? Yeah, so this is the 20th time you've been on the show, isn't it? Don't pull that face.
And I haven't had a penny in royalties yet, so I'm just wondering whether...
I haven't had any...
You've got a hold up in your account.
Hold on, Nick. Nick, I've got it here.
Right,
I've got your pay.
That's only 10p.
I'll tell you what, Nick, what we'll do is we'll negotiate a fee along the lines of the royalties that I haven't been paid for the family show, ladies and gentlemen, family show. So,
sorry, you'll have to take that up with our American division.
Fair enough. Okay. All right, then. I'll write to Auntie Liz, shall I? Yeah.
No, that's our Canadian division.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. Okay.
You'll need to try the American division.
Apparently, it's 20. Dr. Steph is horrified that you've been on 20 times. This is always nice.
Yes, perhaps you need to invite the pretty lady back on.
Oh well,
we'll have Steph back
I would imagine her appearances aren't a million miles away from yours. To be fair, perhaps I'm wrong. 14. Oh God. Don't you just hate it when the producer's got all of these figures to make you look stupid? I know he doesn't get out much. That's literally he doesn't get out much. Such is the aviation industry currently. Anyway, it's time to start wrapping up, guys. Let's do some social media if you wouldn't mind, please, Carlos.
Ooh, social media links, Matt. So it's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Social media or search it for Plane Talking UK. Don't forget our WhatsApp number if you want to have your picture on the screen behind Matt, on the green screen in the studio, or send us some feedback, where it be audio or text, you can send it to our WhatsApp number +44 757 2249 And it's been quite busy this week.
John is actually saying, "Am I aviation-related pictures, please?"
Yes,
nothing else.
Not food.
That's
send
all
the
right.
other ones to me. Okay, that's fine.
And you can email the show podcast@planetalkinguk.com. You can also go over to our website, allthews.planetalkinguk.com, and on the website you'll find the all-important shop where you can grab yourself a T-shirt. I'm glad to say that Sue got her T-shirt over in the US this week, so congrats to you, Sue. And you can also find...
I love mine. I love the embroidered patch.
I know.
It's not just printed, guys. It's really fine quality embroidery.
And you can also grab yourself a PTUK mug as well if you wish to drink your wine from a mug.
Join the other mugs here.
And why not subscribe?
Soldier on, Carlos, go on.
Our YouTube channel, where you can get notifications to when we go live. You can help shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room. Go to our website, allthews.youtube.com, or actually you can go to youtube.com and search for Plane Talking UK. And also, don't forget, on our website, there's the links to use for Amazon. If you shop on Amazon, which I have done just before the show, because Matt can have some nice earphones for the studio next week. And also, there's the links on our website if you want to become a Patreon to the show and help to push the show along as we do with $1 or $2. You can click on the Patreon link, or you can make a one-time donation.
Is available now as well, by the way.
Through PayPal. So you can click on the PayPal link and make a one-time donation. Yes. And a little reminder as well, obviously, about the feedback or the segment you've just seen with Steve and Grant. Don't forget to check out the Australian Defence Magazine podcast and Airwaves by Aviation Trader. So next week, we will be back on Friday, hopefully with a full crew. Fingers crossed. Hopefully everyone can make it. And next week, I'm going to bring cakes to the virtual studio because it'll be my birthday.
Oh, what, on the actual day?
Not on the actual day. It's on Wednesday, but it's near enough.
It's near enough.
That's not how this works. I'll be back in a second, guys. I think I've locked my wife out of the house.
Oh, dear. Oh, okay. Yay! Oh, dear. Nick will be in trouble. Right. Good luck, everyone. Oh, my goodness. Oh.
So next week, I'll have some cake left over if I don't eat it all on Wednesday when I turn 21 again.
That's not how this works, by the way, Carlos. You're supposed to buy cakes for everyone else, not for you.
Social distancing, Matt. Social distancing.
Oh, right. Handy excuse. Anyway, do what John said, please.
So a big, massive thank you to Andrew over at the Plane Reclaimers and for sending us the voucher and stuff for Andrew van der Sarg, who's won the voucher. So congratulations to you, Andrew, on being drawn from the hat. And don't forget all the stories that have been sent in to us as well by you guys who've entered the competition will be coming up in future shows. So keep your ears and eyes over. And if you want to see more of the Plane Reclaimers, you can check out them on episode 324. If you go back to our show on 324, you'll find out more about what they do there. And check out the website, basically, because there's loads of new stuff on the website again this week. I think you can virtually buy the entire flight deck from a 747 on there this week.
Have you got an A340 hand controller, the side stick yet?
No, they have got an A340 exhaust nozzle from an engine, Nick.
I mean, a small part of me is
concerned.
Well,
it's probably a CFM56. Blair. Yeah. I want a Trent 500. Right. Thank you very much.
Okay, quite absolutely, very high standards. Anyway, that's it, boys and girls. Thank you very much for joining us. And Nick, thank you for stepping in and keeping Armando's chair very warm. And they've seen as well,
I'm a bit worried about that statement, but I'm doing my best.
Indeed. So hopefully we'll see Nev next week. Missed you, mate. Missed you.
Yes, we have missed you. And you as well, Armando. Get back soon. But, that is where we are going to bring episode 330 to a close. Thanks, everyone in the YouTube chat room. Thanks to all the audio downloaders of the show. Have a great weekend, whatever you're doing. Enjoy your Sunday roast, but it's way too hot for that here in the UK. So enjoy your weekend. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye,
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, airlinepilotguide.com. target for you guys.